It's a momentous day here in Carbondale, Pennsylvania. It's the first day of daylight savings time. Yes, I know, I'm excited. Now, I've made two other videos about this, so I'm not going to bore you with my thoughts on daylight savings time in this one. You can check out the videos up there if you want to see what I had to say about it in previous years of daylight savings time. Let's just say I'm not a fan. Today, I want to talk about what I call geoarbitraging, or using your money from your country in other countries. Now, a lot of us have heard that, at least in the US, that it's very cheap for Americans to travel to certain places right now. And you might wonder, why is that? Well, a lot of it has to do with the exchange rate between the US dollar and whatever the currency is in the country that you're going to. And when I say exchange rate, what I really mean is how much of a foreign currency you can buy with $1 US. For example, I travel a lot to Malaysia, and right now, with $1, I can buy 4.6 Malaysian ringgit. If I go to Argentina right now, I can buy 845 Argentinian pesos with $1 US. And I might want to throw in that when I was in Argentina last spring, in the spring of 2023, well, it was spring here in Carbondale, but it was actually fall in Argentina, which has nothing to do with the currency exchange. The exchange rate was 400 pesos to $1 US, or something in that range. 400, 450, it was around there. So as you can see, the Argentinian peso is extremely weak right now against the US dollar. Argentina does have, I'm not an economist, but I'm going to say severe economic problems right now. So that might be part of the reason why it's 845 to 1. But anyway, that's what the exchange rate means. You give them $1 US and they'll give you X number of currency in their foreign country back. So if you can buy more foreign currency for the US dollar, then you have more buying power within that country. And that's what it means when people say it's very cheap for Americans to travel to X place this year or this summer, when the travel season for Americans really opens up. So in its simplest terms, geoarbitraging is simply taking your strong currency someplace where it can buy more. Now, most people don't travel based on geoarbitrage. If I wanted to go, say, to Europe in July, then I'm going to have to put up with whatever the exchange rate between the dollar and the euro is at that time. Now, the dollar and the euro, they're both very strong currencies, and they're almost on par. In other words, in some cases you can get $1, €1, and it's not that much difference between the two, even if one sometimes is stronger or weaker against the other. So when people say, well, it's very expensive to travel to Europe right now, or it's very cheap to travel to Europe right now, that's what they're talking about. It means that you get more euros or fewer euros for your dollar. Now, someone that's really into geoarbitraging is going to be traveling long term, probably, and is going to pick the places they go based on their economic strength. So if you want to travel somewhere, like a retired person, a lot of retired people live in foreign countries. If you want to travel somewhere, you'll pick some place where your retirement income is going to go as far as possible. So if you're living in New York City, your retirement income is not going to go as far as it would if you were living in Costa Rica or Mexico or Southeast Asia. So that's why a lot of people move when they retire. They move out of expensive places and they move to cheaper places. But you don't have to be retired to take advantage of this. For example, if you're working for a US company in Malaysia and you're paid in US dollars, your buying power there is very high. If you're working in Malaysia and you're paid in Malaysian ringgit, then your buying power is relative to whatever it is in the country at that time in Malaysia. I experienced this at 2 times. The first time I went to work in Malaysia was during the 1980s. And I was working for a US company that paid me in US dollars in a US bank. But I lived in Malaysia. So, and the exchange rate between the US dollar and the Malaysian ringgit at that time was something like 1 to 3.2, 3.1 sometimes. So for every US dollar I earned, it was actually worth 3.2 ringgit. The second time I went to work in Malaysia was in the 2012, or in that area, and I was working for a Malaysian company. So I was being paid locally in Malaysian ringgit. The exchange rate was worse. I think when I started working there, the exchange rate to the dollar was 3.5 ringgit. And by the time I left, the exchange rate had risen to 4.5. The Malaysian ringgit, unfortunately, is very weak right now. So geoarbitraging in that sense wasn't taking place since I was working in a foreign country and being paid in a foreign currency. If I was being paid in US currency, I'd be earning a strong currency and being able to spend it where it's worth a lot more than it would be if I was at home. Are you with me? This is what actually got me thinking about this today. There are some countries that actually use the US dollar as their currency, their official currency. And I mentioned this once last year when I went to Ecuador. Their currency is the US dollar. In fact, they use the Susan B. Anthony, or not the Susan B. Anthony, but the Pocahontas dollar coins. You probably remember those. I don't know how they got them all down there. It must cost a lot more to get those coins there than it would be worth, but that's another story. If anybody knows how those coins got there, let me know. Leave a note or comment below. But it was all based, their currency was all US dollar currency. There was no, as far as I could tell, Ecuadorian currency. Another country that uses the US dollar is Cambodia. I think I told a story once about when I went to Cambodia. I was trying to get some money from an ATM at the airport, and I did the calculation based on Cambodian currency about what I thought I would need. It was something like 50,000, whatever Cambodian currency is called, I forget. And the ATM would never give me the money. The transaction would always fail. And finally, I found out that the ATMs in Cambodia dispense US dollars. So luckily, the transaction failed, and it did not dispense 50,000 US dollars. I'm glad it didn't do that, but it was unusual. I didn't know that they dispensed US dollars. In Cambodian's economy at that time, I think it was about 2015, they used US dollars and they also used their own currency. And their own currency is one that has such small units that it has a lot of zeros on it, let's put it that way. It's hard to keep track of, but the easiest thing was everybody there, not just tourists, paid for things with US dollars. And there are other countries that do this. I'm not an expert on that. You can look that up. But that's what got me thinking about it, because on my upcoming trip for 2024, my first stop will be Cambodia. So I started thinking about how to get money, wondering if they still use the US dollar as much as they did back then. in 2015 and what I'm in for. So that's about it from Carbondale. And as we all know, this is the excitement capital of Pennsylvania. So I wish I had more report. It has been an unusually unexciting week here in Carbondale. If you like this video, please click like there underneath the screen, because as you know, if you click like or if you like this video, all of your wildest dreams will come true. Be seeing you.